Ladies and gentlemen, what a treat we have at Solana Boston this year. John Deaton is running for a seat in the United States Senate to represent Massachusetts for the next 6 years. He's running for the seat currently occupied by Elizabeth Warren. And he's running as a Republican in Massachusetts. John, you've had a busy week this week, too.
I like challenges, clearly.
How is it going?
It's going great. Obviously, the biggest disappointment so far is that Senator Warren, even though she was given 4 debates when she was a challenger, she refused to debate me more than twice. And I think you may have seen, if you watched any of the debates, why I'm not your typical kind of Washington politician. I'm more of an American who's frustrated just like all you out there. So, you know, a lot of people asked me was when I looked at her and said, I got news for you, Senator, you all suck in Washington. Was that planned? No, because when I got back into the room after the debate, my campaign team goes, where the hell was that from? And I just said, listen, I was just standing there, not a candidate, more of an American citizen, just frustrated with this broken system. And this industry exemplifies just how broken the system is as far as regulations in Washington, D.C.
So, John, I watched you in the debates. You did a great job.
Thanks.
For the folks who have not watched the debates or read the book, I'd love for you to spend a few minutes on your background, because obviously your background has shaped who you are and what you're doing right now. So tell us about your upbringing. Obviously, you roared onto the scene during XRP litigation, but tell us about how you got introduced to crypto and why you're running for office.
All right, thanks. Listen, I wrote a book called Food Stamp Warrior, and it was really a book about unexamined trauma. I lived in a place called Highland Park, Detroit. If you look it up, you'll see it's ranked in the top 5 worst neighborhoods in America, bar none, for the last 40 years. There's a sign not too far from my childhood home that says, enter at your own risk, police do not patrol the area. Give you an idea, my mom was stabbed when I was 6 in front of me. The stabber, unfortunately, was a predator who raped me for a period of 2 years between 9 and 11, threatened to kill my mom. If I told anyone after watching her get stabbed and almost die 3 years earlier, you can imagine what that does to a 9-year-old's mind. My best friend at 17 died in my arms in a drive-by shooting. My first day of high school, I was a high school dropout because I had a gun shoved in my mouth on first day. Everyone in my family was a high school dropout. I'm going to tell you what poverty does to people. My mom caught me crying and said, why are you so upset? I was 14. I said, Mom, I want to go to college. And she said, just do what Toby did, my brother. Work till you're 17. I'll sign the papers. You join and enlist in the military. That's your sort of ticket out of the hood, if you will. And I said, I don't want to do that. I want to go to college. My mother put her arms around me. My mother's my hero, trust me. She put her arms around me and said, I'm sorry, son, but college isn't for people like us. You know, and that's what poverty does to you. It strips you of your self-esteem and your ambition. And I vowed that I would break it. And I got a break. Tiny Catholic high school principal, cut the tuition in half. And I worked my way through high school and then college and law school here in Boston. When I came across Bitcoin, it was late 2016. I wish I could say I was earlier. And I remember my mom, she had a welfare check back in those days would come in the mail, and it wasn't direct deposit. And she couldn't keep a bank account because she would always go below the minimum balance, and they would hit her with those fees. So she'd go to, if you ever go to the inner city, you're going to see a store that says check cashing, lotto, liquor, Western Union, all in one, right? My mother would go to those check cashing stores, and she would beg them. I remember watching her beg them, please don't take 15%. Can you please take less? I need the money to feed my family. When I got to college, I would send her money through Western Union, $100. Well, she'd get 85 or 88, right? And that made a difference. So I read Bitcoin. I was like, oh, my God. You could cut out the predatory banks and the MoneyGrams and the Western Unions. This is revolutionary. And then I did what most of us do. I went down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin and crypto. And so that's how I got in, a very personal connection to me. You know, Senator Warren called me corrupt because she said I have 80% of my net worth in crypto. Well, I think this is America, right? So if it's a bad investment, that's on me. And so that's really my connection. That's why if you watch the debates, you'll see I'm really not your typical politician and sort of speak my mind in a very different way, because I am the American dream. whether I win this election or not, a poor kid who's supposed to be, his birth was supposed to be, you're going to be in jail, or you're going to be dead, or you're going to be a crackhead, like a lot of people in the neighborhood, stood on stage against one of the most corrupt politicians in D.C., one of the most Washington elites there is, and went toe-to-toe. And if that's not American dream, I don't know what is. So.
Awesome. So we know where Elizabeth Warren, your opponent, stands on crypto. She said she was forming an anti-crypto army about 2 years ago.
Yep.
And she must have done that because she thought that would help her in her next election, which is now. So 2 questions for you. The first one is, do you think it did help her, or is the freedom agenda that you just laid out related to crypto helping you in this election, number one? And number 2, I mean, in the debates, you're not really able to go deep on crypto, but I want you to talk about the effect that Elizabeth Warren's attitude about crypto has had on the development of public policy in the United States.
Yeah, she really has been the person responsible. I mean, literally, think about it. Senior senator from Massachusetts wakes up one day and says, I'm going to announce, when we got illegal immigration, we got debt crisis, inflation crisis, housing crisis, foreign wars. There's a lot of stuff going on here in Massachusetts and the world. But our senior senator woke up one day and said, I'm going to run for office again, and I'm going to build an anti-crypto army. What? And then I couldn't figure it out. I was like, why is she focusing on crypto? It's not a top 10 issue in Massachusetts. She went on Meet the Press to Chuck Todd and said, America's ready for a Federal Reserve issued CBDC. And then I go, now you want to get rid of all self-custody of Bitcoin, crypto, Solana, whatever, so that you can force us into a CBDC where it's programmable, as everybody knows. George Orwell started rolling over in his grave, right? China's the only one adopting a CBDC right now in a mass way. I don't think that's the way we want to follow. So that's where I think her motivation is. And here, she put a bill together. And just here's what I learned about Washington. Whatever the bill says, it's the opposite, right? So it's the Inflation Reduction Act. That means inflation is going to skyrocket, which it did, 40-year high. So she puts a bill together called the Anti-Money Laundering to Crypto. She got 20% of the U.S. Senate to immediately agree to her. It is a de facto ban of self-custody of crypto in America. And yet 20%, a Republican from Kansas, Marshall, agreed, joined her. Lindsey Graham, Republicans, joined her because all they do is they read the title, right? We could all agree AML KYC should apply to crypto. I'm a Coinbase customer for a few years. I get Coinbase to come on my campaign to accept donations. It took 3 days for them to KYC and AML me. And I'm like, dude, I'm already a customer. I'm John Deaton. I'm running for U.S. Senate. Why does it take 3 days? But they're doing it. And so that's the problem that we have. Her narrative, they don't understand it. When you sit down with Lindsey Graham or Ben Marshall, I didn't know that it banned Bitcoin, self-custody. I thought it was just AML laws applied to crypto. They already apply to crypto. Everybody knows that in this room, that on-ramps and off-ramps already do KYC AML. You have to. So she's been a controlling force. The good news for everybody, as the panel before said, crypto's here. It's here to stay. We all know that. You go back a few years ago, there were some dark days in this industry. Let's just all be honest. But you have both presidential candidates. Both of them accept crypto donations, first off. One says going to make crypto the capital of the world here in America. And the other repudiated Senator Warren by saying, I want a crypto reset in this country. And there's already rumors going out that Gensler will not be allowed to stay under VP Harris. So whomever you're voting for, doesn't matter. I think that's good for the industry, and it should make everybody feel like finally that weight, that boot that's been on our neck for 3, 4 years, 5 years is going to come off.
Couldn't agree more. I think the fact that both presidential candidates are trying to appeal to the crypto vote is a massive advantage. Okay, fast forward to January 2025. You're the junior senator from Massachusetts. everyone in the Senate, everyone on the Hill knows that you're a crypto expert. What are the top things that you do to push forward public policy around digital assets in the United States?
Well, the first thing is to create a digital asset council in the Congress, in the Senate, right? You know how they have all these sub kind of groups, Freedom Caucus or this. It would sort of be a what I would call a technology caucus, if you will, so we could deal with artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, blockchain technology. I mean, listen, we had Senator Feinstein was 90 years old, being wheeled in a wheelchair with a literally she had a power of attorney in her personal life in her daughter's name, and they're whispering in her ear how to vote. That's who we have voting on blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. So you have to educate them. For example, there's still this perception that, oh, you know, Bitcoin, stable coins, they're a threat to the dollar. Everyone in this room knows that if you do it the right way, you will actually bolster demand for the U.S. dollar across the world and reinforce its role as the world's reserve currency. And so we need to first educate them, but I would certainly be offering legislation like that. I would offer other types of legislation that would be, we have to win. We lost the semiconductors. You know, we did well with the internet, then the semis came around and we sent it to Taiwan and other places. We have to be the leading country when it comes to these new technologies. If we're not, it's bad news.
I'm glad you raised that issue. So in addition to digital assets, you mentioned AI. Obviously, the Congress is going to be debating Section 230. There's energy transition. There's all these issues that are related to high tech. And in this country, we used to say, hey, private sector, go and develop this thing. And then if regulations were necessary, Congress would step in and regulate. It seems like now we're putting the regulation cart before the innovation horse.
Absolutely.
So when you think about how Senator Deaton would deal with issues of technology zoomed out from crypto, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, listen, I'm a free market guy, obviously. Here's an example. In the Inflation Reduction Act, they assigned $7.5 billion to build EV charging stations, right? Electrical vehicles charging stations. 3 years later, they had one operational. In 4 years, they've built 7. $7.5 billion. In the meantime, Tesla in 1 quarter built 359 EV charging stations, obviously for a fraction of $7.5 billion. So the private sector is always going to do better than the government sector. Here in Massachusetts, there's a serious housing crisis like most places. It's taking 2 years for builders to pull permits. That's just insane. So we've got to cut through the red tape. And one way of doing that is getting the government out of the way, because right now our government is absolutely in the way. And, you know, I was surprised that Senator Warren during the debate was like, oh, yeah, if we need to cut regulation, let's do it. Listen, what's held this industry back has been the lack of regulatory clarity. So I've been out there, when I sued the SEC, it was because I think we need smart, tailored regulations. But think of this. We're applying 1933 statute and a case called Howie, as some of you've heard, from 1946 about oranges to artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, automotive. That's insanity, right? You can't take 33 law from the 30s to today. So we need people to get off their butt in Congress and actually want to do their job. And right now they don't want to. They just want to push everything off and argue about labels. And but I'm going to be an absolute pro-innovation. And you want to know what state does the best? Massachusetts, right? If we foster innovation in this country in, you know, renewable energy technology, artificial intelligence, everything we've talked about, Massachusetts is going to do well. We've got Harvard, we have MIT, we have Tufts, we have so many great institutions, and we need to do that because we'll win as a state.
Let me ask you to press pause a little bit on the XRP litigation that you were involved in. I mean, I think you described it perfectly. The reason we are where we are in digital assets legislation, regulation, or lack thereof is because Congress isn't doing its job, and it forces lawyers and clients like you were a few years ago in the XRP litigation to go out there and say, no, this isn't working right. So why don't you give everybody just a short summary of your role there?
Yeah, listen, I was accused a lot of times on social media, he must be paid by Brad Garlinghouse. I had never met Rip or Brad Garlinghouse. My daughter was 18 years old. She turned 18, Jordan. She just graduated UMass Amherst. She got 15 grand. You know, that saved up from birthday parties and grandma giving her $50, whatever. So I said, honey, do something smart with it. But you're 18 years old. And, she bought a Bitcoin for 10 grand. And she's just took, hey, Dad's talking about these digital assets. So she took 10 grand, bought Bitcoin. The other 5, she bought $2,500 worth of ETH and XRP. She just took the top 3, knew nothing about it. She had never heard about Brad Garlinghouse. She didn't know what Ripple was. And so I knew there were people like her that had no connection to this company. And why are you going to say that when someone bought XRP off Coinbase, that they have an illegal security? Beavers were used, as you know, beavers were used as an investment contract. They're still beavers. Bitcoin in 2013 was packaged as a security. It's still Bitcoin. Condos. The token itself has never been, or the underlying asset's never been the security. Why are you doing this? And so I knew people would be hurt. I knew investors would be hurt, so I got pissed. That's the real answer. At my government, that overreach, and I sued the SEC, and it went viral, and 75,000 XRP holders joined me, 627 here in Massachusetts, and a lifelong Democrat judge appointed by Barack Obama agreed. She said XRP itself's not a security. She cited the affidavits I submitted by XRP holders and cited some work I did in library, and I'm very proud of it. And I did it pro bono. I'm not asking to be pat on the back. I'm just pointing out that they call me a crypto attorney, but I've never made any money as a crypto attorney. It's all been pro bono work. I made money owning crypto. So let me make that clear. I do own Solana. I want everybody to know, so let me give you my full disclosure here.
That's a great rundown. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk about crypto issues. We will return to those.
Sure.
But obviously this election is about a lot more than that. So, when you think about, when you barnstorm this state and talk to the state's voters about what's on their minds, I'm sure a lot of that stuff came up in the debate, use border security and immigration and housing. What are the big issues that you're thinking about, and how are you separating yourself from Elizabeth Warren on those issues?
The 2 biggest issues here for everyone, and that's why I've been calling her the crypto candidate, because I said illegal immigration, debt crisis. I mean, we're paying $3 billion a day on interest alone. I pointed out on the debate stage, because her solution to the problem is everything is taxed to rich. So I said, Senator, 735 billionaires in America with a cumulative wealth of $4.5 trillion. Let's just take all their money from them. Don't tax them, take it all. And we pay the interest on our debt for 4 years. Not a dollar goes towards education, climate change, anything you want to talk about. So that's a slogan, not a solution. Inflation, pricing everyone out of the country, foreign wars, and she's focused on crypto. It's insane. And so she's the crypto candidate. But the 2 biggest factors here is Massachusetts is illegal immigration, migrant crisis, whatever you want to call it, because here in Massachusetts we have a right to shelter law that does not require residency. So anyone who shows up and is homeless, they're being put up in a hotel room, they're being fed, they're being clothed. Massachusetts has spent over $1 billion in the last year on this crisis. So Massachusetts is a border state because of that right to shelter law, which is also a right to educate law. So you're having classrooms impacted because kids, and it's not the migrants' kids' fault that they don't speak English, but it does impact, education. And so that's number 1. And number 2 is Massachusetts is now the 2nd most expensive state to live in, behind Hawaii. And so rent here is more expensive than San Francisco and San Diego. And that's pricing regular people out of the economy. And when you print 80% of all U.S. dollars in the last 4 years of course you're going to debase your currency. In January of 2020, there were $4 trillion in circulation. 2 years later, there was $20 trillion in circulation. You cannot debase your currency to that extent and not experience inflation to the point that we have. And so we've got to get it under control.
So, John, you mentioned, maybe tongue-in-cheek at the beginning of this, that you love a fight. You're running as a Republican in Massachusetts. You're trying to unseat an incumbent. I think I read in the...
There's my brass knuckle necklace, just so you know.
I think I read that hasn't happened in 100 years in Massachusetts. So I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
We are all pulling for you, or at least I am. The first one is, what is the path to victory? And then I'll ask the second one after you,
Sure.
after you answer that one.
I've told everyone, I'm not delusional, right? I put $1 million of my own money in the race. I wouldn't have done that if I thought there was zero chance. There's a very narrow uphill path to victory. I need a few things to break my way. I need to raise more money. If you support me, go to johndeatonforsenate.com, please. Even $5 helps. Senator Warren has $8 million, raised $8 million. I've raised $2 million. $1 million of it's my own money, but I wouldn't do that if there was no chance. I need a few lucky breaks along the way. We've done polling that shows if all they learn is they see Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, John Deaton, Republican, I'm going to lose by 20 points, if that's all they see. When they learn I'm a veteran, 7 years in the Marine Corps, and I'm pro-choice in Massachusetts, it's 7 points immediately. So if they learn more about me, then it's very competitive. Former Republican Governor Charlie Baker, there was a poll that showed that if he were in this race, he'd beat her by 15 points. Doesn't translate to John Deaton. I wasn't the governor for 8 years. The people don't know me like that. But if I'm able to get my name out there, I'll do it. I got mentioned on Joe Rogan 2 weeks ago, but I didn't get the call. If I get on that show, it's 12 million views. It leads to money. It leads to exposure. So it really comes down to that. If those things don't work out, I'll get my ass kicked. But it won't be the first time in life. And you know what? When you learn my story, the fact that I can stand toe-to-toe with someone like her in America proves that America's great. And we get to damage the false narrative, right? Because she called me corrupt because I have my money invested in crypto, which means every one of you is corrupt in her eyes. When she says that crypto is only for criminals, those are her words, only for criminals and terrorists. She called everyone in this room a criminal or a terrorist because we believe in technology. You know, to me, Bitcoin and crypto is the new American dream. Because when I was young, and I'm 57 years old, buying a house, paying it off, maybe owning a couple stocks, and having a nice savings account, that was the American dream. Today, you can't afford a house. They had 0% interest, so they would charge you money to put it in the bank, so you couldn't keep a savings account. So the only people in the last 20 years that have actually done well are people who have owned stuff, right? Bitcoin, real estate, whatever it is, gold. And so I view crypto as the new American dream. So you could take a apartment building and digitize it on the blockchain, and now you could be a renter and have a fractional share of ownership in the apartment that you're actually living and building equity. So to me, this whole technology represents the new American dream, and that's why I fight so hard for it.
So, John, this is not your first foray into public service. And I think you running, just the fact that you're running and not sort of leading to a coronation for the sitting senator is a public service. But as you said, you served in the Marine Corps. You've done a lot of pro bono work. What does the future of public service look like for John Deaton? Because I think your voice is very important to have.
Well, thank you. I'm someone who believes in term limits. You know, everybody asks me what's my first bill. The first bill I would write is that you get 12 years as a U.S. Senator or 12 years as a congressman. It's called public service, not self-service. That's why when Senator Warren criticized me, she literally criticized me for being a success because I have money now in my life, considering the poverty that I grew up in. And I'm like looking at her like, shame on you. Like, I didn't hate rich people when I was poor. I might say, hey, you got 5 minutes? Can you tell me what you know that I need to know in life? I didn't demonize people. Yet that's the approach, that she took. And so I think, what was the question? You got me distracted.
No. Well,
Public service. So it would be term limits, because look at Senator Warren. She promised to hold the bankers accountable 12 years ago. Who wrote her anti-crypto bill? The Banking Policy Institute of the United States, led by J.P. Morgan Chase. That's a fact, not an opinion. So that's what happens. So term limits, and I was able to tell her I made my money before going to Washington. How do you all go to Washington broke? And 10 years later, you have millions and millions of dollars. And so I think that if we don't get term limits, it's one of the issues that threaten our society, because trust me, they want us divided. They want us arguing over, do you call them migrants or illegal aliens? Let's just fix the fucking problem, right? Let's not spend our time arguing over nonsense. But that's what they do. MAGA versus Rhino. And, we got to get past that. They want to keep us divided so that they can keep power, so that they can keep enriching themselves. And so I'm gonna fight until I don't have a breath left in my life.
John, you have a room full of people who are activated, who are super smart, who are interested in crypto and technology and the success of the United States. You have hundreds more online, maybe thousands. If you could give us advice on how we could affect positive change in Washington, D.C., even though we have our day jobs, what would you say?
I would say that everybody in this room is so bright, and you're here for a reason, but you have to get active with your elected leaders. All they care about is themselves, right? They're worrying about re-election. They're worried about this. It is shameful that Senator Warren had 20 U.S. senators. That's 20% of the Senate ready to ban crypto self-custody in America. They didn't know that that's what the bill did, and so you need to get your voice heard. And if you could take 10% of your time and activate it towards engaging your congressmen, elected leaders, making your voice heard, it matters. Listen, the Stand With Crypto phenomena, I don't know if it's true, but they're claiming that in the swing states, the crypto vote could equal 1 to 2% of a vote. That's the election. And this election is going to come down to 50,000 votes in 3 states, probably Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and whatever other state. I forget the other state. Yeah. And so if we had that voice, that 1 or 2% changes this election. And so I think you should be proud of the fact that you're in an industry, or you're interested in an industry where both presidential candidates are talking about almost trying to out crypto the other one at this point. We've come a long way, and I think that says a lot. So if you activate your voice and your intelligence on your elected leaders, I think you can make a difference.
So, John, in the closing few seconds that we have together, you've been barnstorming the state corner to corner, going to county fairs, pumpkin fest, cities all over the place. What have you learned about Massachusetts? What should we take away from all this work that you've done to get your name out there?
There was a study that said that Massachusetts electorate is probably the most sophisticated, educated electorate. Now, if they vote Senator Warren in again, I'm going to question that study. But I've really just realized that we're all so much similar. If we stop, that's why I said, I stood on the stage and said, everybody knows here in Massachusetts, I don't support President Trump. All right, I've made that known. That's pissed off a lot of Republicans, and I get it. But I stood on the stage and said, but shame on you, Senator Warren, because she indicts anyone who does. And so that's why I said, listen, maybe people are frustrated at foreign wars, and maybe they're frustrated with a broken system, and maybe they're frustrated that they're watching billions of their dollars be spent on migrants who just got here, but there's no money for the wildfire people in Hawaii or the hurricane victims in North Carolina, or the parks are becoming crime scenes. And maybe they feel betrayed, as a lot of people were surprised that I quoted Tupac on stage when I said, they got money for war but can't feed the poor. I think they're tired of America coming in second, third, or fourth. So maybe you could understand that. And I think that whether I talk to a Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, at the end of the day, we want the same things in life. We love our family. We want to live a comfortable life. We want to do some good things and be inspired. And I wish we could get back to look each other in the face and say, I might disagree with who you pick for president, but I don't disagree with you. And if we could get back to that kind of mentality, I think America can get back on track.
John Deaton, thank you for being here today. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody.